I walked into that five-star restaurant wearing a faded dress and carrying a worn canvas bag. My daughter-in-law's parents looked at me with barely concealed disgust. They had no idea that the poor, struggling mother sitting across from them earned more in a month than they spent in a year. What happened next shocked everyone at that table. By the end of the night, my daughter-in-law was in tears, her mother was speechless, and their credit cards were declined, while I paid an $800 bill without blinking. Let me take you back to the beginning, because this story starts long before that devastating dinner. My name is Aisha, and I'm 58 years old. For the past 23 years, I've held a secret from my son Daniel, a secret so well guarded that even the person closest to me never suspected the truth. Daniel is 35 now, married to a wonderful young woman named Claire. Throughout his entire life, he believed his mother was just another working woman struggling to get by. He saw me leave early for work, return home exhausted, cook simple meals from whatever ingredients I had on hand. To him, I was ordinary, unremarkable, just another face in the crowd of working-class mothers doing their best. And I never corrected him. I never told him that I earn $40,000 every single month, that I'm the regional director of operations for one of the largest multinational corporations in the world, that I oversee operations across 5 countries, manage budgets exceeding hundreds of millions of dollars, and make decisions that directly affect over 10,000 employees, that I've signed contracts worth more than most people will earn in their entire lifetimes. Why keep it secret? Because I learned something crucial early in life. Money changes people. It corrupts relationships. It creates expectations and entitlement. I wanted my son to grow up valuing hard work, not inheritance. I wanted him to become a man of character, not a trust fund child waiting for his mother to die. So I lived simply. The same modest 2-bedroom apartment for 18 years, the same leather handbag until it was falling apart, clothes from discount stores, home-cooked meals, no luxury cars, no designer labels, no flashy jewelry. I saved everything, invested wisely, and built wealth in complete silence. Because true power doesn't announce itself, true power observes. And I was about to put that power to use. It was a Tuesday afternoon when Daniel called me. I was in my office, reviewing quarterly reports, when my personal phone buzzed. "Mom, I need to ask you something." His voice sounded strained, almost nervous. "Of course, sweetheart. What is it?" There was a pause. "Claire's parents are visiting from abroad. It's their first time in the country, and they want to meet you. We're planning a dinner this Saturday at Marcello's. Can you come?" Marcello's, an upscale Italian restaurant where appetizers alone cost more than some people's weekly grocery budget. I felt a small warning bell go off in my mind. "That sounds lovely," I said carefully. "Have you told them about me?" Another pause, longer this time. Then Daniel cleared his throat. "I told them you work in an office, that you live alone, that you're simple, that you don't have much." There it was, simple, as if my entire existence could be reduced to that one dismissive word, as if I were something to be apologized for, a problem to be managed. I took a slow breath, keeping my voice neutral. "I see. And why did you describe me that way?" "Mom, you know how it is. Claire's parents they're very successful. Her father owns several businesses. Her mother comes from old money. I just didn't want them to, I thought it would be easier if they didn't expect too much from me," I finished for him. "It's not like that," he protested weakly, but we both knew it was exactly like that. My son, the boy I raised to stand on his own 2 feet, was embarrassed of his mother. Not because of who I was, but because of who he thought I was. "I'll be there, Daniel," I said quietly. "Saturday at 7? "Yes, thank you, Mom. I really appreciate it." After we hung up, I sat in my executive chair looking out over the city skyline from my corner office.
The sun was setting, painting everything in shades of gold and amber. In that moment, I made a decision. I would give them exactly what they expected, and then I would show them exactly who I am. Saturday arrived with clear skies and perfect weather. I stood in my closet, deliberately bypassing the section containing my tailored suits, silk blouses, and designer pieces I wore to corporate events. Instead, I pulled out a simple cotton dress I'd owned for years, slightly faded from too many washes. I paired it with worn flat shoes and my old canvas tote bag, the one with fraying handles and a coffee stain on one side. I looked in the mirror. The woman staring back at me looked tired, ordinary, forgettable. Perfect. But I made sure to bring two things: my corporate credit card and my American Express Centurion card. Both were safely tucked in my simple leather wallet, just in case.
As I drove my modest 10-year-old sedan to the restaurant, I reflected on what I was about to do. Some might call it a test, others might call it manipulation. I called it necessary research. I needed to know what kind of people had raised the woman my son married. I needed to understand what values, what beliefs, what prejudices they held. Because if they were the kind of people who judged others based on appearance and wealth, I needed to know. If they were the kind of people who would mistreat someone they perceived as beneath them, that would tell me everything about their character. And character, unlike money, cannot be faked. Marcello's was exactly as I remembered it: elegant, dimly lit, with white tablecloths and fresh flowers on every table. The hostess greeted me with a professional smile that faltered slightly when she took in my appearance. "I'm here for the Hamilton party," I said. "Of course, right this way." She led me through the restaurant, and I noticed the subtle way she positioned herself slightly ahead and to the side, as if trying to block other diners' view of me. Interesting. Then I saw them, Daniel and Claire at a table near the back, and sitting across from them, a couple in their late 50s. The woman wore a stunning emerald dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, with diamond earrings that caught the light every time she moved. Her hair was perfectly styled, her makeup flawless. The man beside her wore an expensive suit, a Rolex gleaming on his wrist. They looked up as I approached, and I watched their expressions change in real time. Claire smiled warmly, genuinely happy to see me. Daniel looked relieved that I'd shown up, but also slightly embarrassed. And Claire's parents. Her mother's eyes traveled from my face down to my shoes and back up again, and something cold flickered in her gaze. Her father's expression remained careful and neutral, but I saw the slight tightening around his mouth. "Mom!" Daniel stood up quickly. "You made it! Mom, these are Claire's parents, Victoria and Richard Hamilton. Victoria, Richard, this is my mother, Aisha." "It's wonderful to finally meet you," I said, extending my hand with a warm smile. Victoria took it briefly, her handshake limp and dismissive. "Yes, hello." Her voice was cool, polite in the way that actually communicates disinterest. Richard shook my hand with slightly more warmth. "Nice to meet you, Aisha." I sat down in the chair Daniel pulled out for me, placing my canvas bag on the floor beside me. I didn't miss the way Victoria's eyes lingered on it, a small crease appearing between her perfectly shaped eyebrows. "Aisha, we've heard so much about you," Victoria said, though her tone suggested she'd heard very little and cared even less. "All good things, I hope," I replied with a self-deprecating laugh. "Daniel tells us you work in an office," Richard said, in the tone someone might use to ask about a hobby rather than a career. "Yes, I do administrative work," I said vaguely. "Nothing too exciting, just enough to pay the bills, you know." Victoria's expression softened slightly, but not with kindness. It was the look of someone who had just confirmed their suspicions. "How practical," she said. "In this economy, it's important to be financially stable, even if the work isn't particularly fulfilling." The waiter arrived with menus, and I watched Victoria's face as I opened mine and carefully studied the prices. I let my eyes widen slightly at the entree section. "Everything looks wonderful," I said. Though I think I'll just have the house salad and perhaps some bread. Nonsense, Richard said with forced generosity. Please, order whatever you'd like. This is our treat. Oh, I couldn't possibly, I protested. That's too kind, but I don't want to be a burden. It's no burden at all, Victoria said, but I heard the subtext. We're rich enough that your small appetizer won't even register. Claire touched my hand gently. Please, Aisha, order something substantial. We want you to enjoy yourself. I finally agreed to order a modest pasta dish, one of the least expensive entrees on the menu. Victoria ordered lobster. Richard ordered the Wagyu beef. I watched them order a $300 bottle of wine without even glancing at the price. As we waited for our food, Victoria turned her attention to me with renewed interest. Not the good kind of interest, the kind that precedes an interrogation. So, Aisha, Daniel mentioned you live alone? Yes, after my husband passed away 15 years ago, it's just been me. I have a small apartment not far from here. How quaint, Victoria said, in a tone that made quaint sound like an insult. And you've never remarried? No desire to have someone to share your life with? I've been content on my own. My work keeps me busy, and I have Daniel. Victoria exchanged a glance with Richard. Of course, though I imagine it must be difficult managing on just one income. Office administrative work can't pay very much these days. There it was, the first direct probe into my finances. I get by, I said with a modest smile. I've learned to be quite frugal over the years. That's admirable, Victoria said, though her tone suggested she found it pitiable rather than admirable. Richard and I have always believed in living well. Life is too short to deny oneself the finer things. I can see that, I said, gesturing to her jewelry. Your earrings are stunning. She touched them with obvious pleasure. Thank you. They were a gift from Richard for our anniversary, from Cartier. They're beautiful, I said sincerely. I wouldn't even know where to begin shopping for something like that. Victoria's smile widened. She was warming to me now, in the way a cat warms to a mouse it's about to play with. Our food arrived, and I made a point of expressing delight over my simple pasta, while Victoria cut into her lobster with practiced elegance. The conversation flowed, but I noticed a pattern. Every few minutes, Victoria would steer the conversation back to money, to lifestyle, to the differences between their world and mine. We've just returned from 3 months in the south of France, she said. We have a villa there. Do you travel much, Aisha? Not really, I admitted. I take the bus to work mostly. Keeps costs down. The bus, Victoria repeated, as if I'd said I'd traveled by donkey. How economical. Richard cleared his throat. Victoria, perhaps we should— I'm just making conversation, darling, she said sweetly. Then turning back to me, Aisha, forgive me for being direct, but I'm concerned. Daniel is our son-in-law now, part of our family, and I worry that he feels obligated to support you financially. Is that the case? The table went silent. Claire's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. Daniel's face went pale. Mom, Claire said sharply, that's inappropriate. I'm just being practical, sweetheart, Victoria said, her eyes never leaving mine. If Aisha is struggling, we should know. We're family now. We help each other. I set down my fork carefully. Daniel doesn't support me financially. I support myself with my salary. Of course, Victoria said, in a tone that suggested she didn't believe me. But if you ever need help, even just a little extra to make ends meet, you shouldn't be too proud to ask, should she, Richard? Richard looked uncomfortable. Victoria, I don't think— Actually, Victoria continued, leaning forward slightly, I have a proposition for you, Aisha, something that might benefit everyone. I looked at Victoria with carefully crafted curiosity. A proposition? She smiled, but there was something calculated behind it. Richard and I have been very fortunate in life. We believe in sharing that fortune with family, and you are family now, whether we planned for it or not. Claire's face flushed red. Mom, let me finish, darling, Victoria said smoothly.
Aisha, I know how difficult it must be, living on a limited income, trying to maintain dignity while struggling to make ends meet, and I know that sometimes in families there can be financial strain, adult children feeling obligated to help their aging parents.
I'm 58, not elderly, I said mildly. Of course not, Victoria agreed, but you're approaching retirement age, and I doubt you have substantial savings. Administrative work doesn't typically come with robust pension plans. I said nothing, just watched her with polite attention. So here's what I'm proposing, Victoria continued, pulling out her phone and tapping at it briefly before setting it down. Richard and I would like to set you up with a monthly allowance, $700. That would be in addition to whatever you currently earn, of course. Think of it as a family stipend, something to make your life a little easier. The table fell completely silent. Even the ambient noise of the restaurant seemed to fade away. An allowance, I repeated slowly. Yes, Victoria said brightly. It's a generous offer, Eleanor. That's an extra $8,400 a year, tax-free, of course. Think of what you could do with that. Perhaps you could even afford to travel occasionally or buy yourself some nicer clothes. In exchange for what? I asked quietly. Victoria's smile faltered just slightly. Excuse me? What would you want in exchange for this allowance? She laughed lightly. Nothing, dear. It's a gift. We're simply trying to help. I looked at Richard. He was staring at his plate, his jaw tight. I looked at Daniel. His face was a mixture of shock and shame. I looked at Claire. She had tears in her eyes. Mom, Claire said, her voice shaking, how could you? How could I what? Victoria asked, genuinely confused. I'm trying to help. Your mother-in-law clearly needs assistance, and we're in a position to provide it. That's what family does. That's not what family does, Claire said, her voice rising. That's what people do when they want to control someone. Don't be dramatic, Victoria snapped. I'm being practical. I cleared my throat softly. May I ask you something, Victoria? Of course. If I accepted this allowance, would you expect me to minimize my presence in Daniel and Claire's life? Perhaps see them less often? Maybe not attend certain family events? The table went absolutely silent. Victoria's face went carefully blank. What an odd question, she said finally. Why would you think that? Because $700 a month is exactly the kind of amount someone offers when they want to pay someone to disappear, I said calmly. Not enough to seem insulting, but enough to make the person feel obligated. It's a brilliant strategy, really. Offer money in the guise of generosity, and if the person accepts, they become beholden to you, and if they refuse, they look ungrateful. Victoria's mask slipped. For just a moment, I saw raw anger flash across her face. That's not what this is, she said coldly. Isn't it? I asked. Because from where I'm sitting, you've spent the last hour emphasizing how different we are, how wealthy you are, how limited I am, how I take the bus while you own a villa in France, how I worry about prices while you order $300 bottles of wine. You've been building a case, Victoria, a case that I'm not good enough to be fully part of this family, that I'm an embarrassment, a burden, and now you're offering me money to, what, to know my place? Victoria's face had gone from pale to flushed. How dare you twist my generosity into something ugly? Is it generosity? I asked. Or is it contempt dressed up in expensive clothes? You have some nerve, Richard finally spoke up. We invite you to dinner. We offer to help you financially, and this is how you respond? You invited me to dinner to assess me, to determine whether I was suitable, and when you decided I wasn't, you tried to buy me off. This is outrageous, Victoria sputtered. Richard, we're leaving. Not yet, I said calmly, because I have something to tell you, something I think you need to hear. Daniel touched my arm. Mom, please, let's just go. No, son, I said gently. It's time. I reached into my worn canvas bag and pulled out my wallet. From it, I extracted a business card, heavy stock, embossed lettering. I slid it across the table to Victoria. She picked it up, squinting slightly in the dim light. I watched her eyes move across the words. Aisha, Regional Director of Operations, Titanium Global Corporation. Her eyes widened. She read it again. Then she looked at me. I don't understand, she said slowly. Let me clarify, I said. I am not an administrative assistant. I am the Regional Director of Operations for one of the largest multinational corporations in the world. I oversee operations in 5 countries. I manage a budget that exceeds $800 million annually. I have 10,000 employees reporting to me, either directly or indirectly, and I earn $40,000 per month. Not per year, per month. The silence that followed was absolute. Daniel's mouth had fallen open. Mom, what? That's $480,000 per year in base salary, not counting bonuses, which typically add another $150,000 to $200,000, not counting stock options, not counting benefits. Over my 23-year career with this company, I've earned approximately $9.6 million in gross income, and I've invested most of it very, very wisely. Victoria looked like she'd been slapped. That's impossible. If you earned that much, we would know. Daniel would know. I never told Daniel, I said, looking at my son with love, because I wanted him to grow up normal. I wanted him to value hard work, not money. I wanted him to become the man sitting beside you, Claire, a man who judges people by their character, not their bank account. A man who married you because he loves you, not because of what your family has. Claire was crying openly now. You let us think you were struggling. I let you think what you needed to think, I replied. But tonight, I wanted to see something. I wanted to see how your parents would treat someone they believed to be poor, someone they thought had nothing to offer, someone they considered beneath them.
I turned back to Victoria. And you showed me exactly who you are. You treated me with contempt. You condescended to me. You patronized me. You offered me money not out of kindness, but out of a desire to control, to manage the problem, to keep the poor mother-in-law at arm's length. This is absurd, Victoria said, but her voice shook. Why would you do this? Why would you lie to your own son? I didn't lie, I said. I simply didn't volunteer information. There's a difference. And I did it because I wanted my son to be independent, to build his own life, to not rely on his mother's money. And he did. He became a successful engineer. He bought his own house. He built his own career. And he married a wonderful woman. I looked at Claire. I'm sorry if this hurts you, but you needed to see this side of your parents, the side that measures people by their wealth, the side that believes money equals worth. We don't believe that, Richard protested. Don't you? I challenged. Then why did every conversation tonight center on money, on what I don't have, on what you do have? Why did you offer me an allowance? Why did Victoria here suggest multiple times that I must be a burden to Daniel? Richard had no answer.
Victoria was staring at my business card as if it might bite her. If this is true, she said slowly, if you really are who you claim to be, then prove it. Prove it how? I asked. Show us something. Anything. A bank statement, a pay stub. Anyone can print a business card. I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. You want proof? Yes. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. I turned the screen toward them. The account balance showed clearly. $2,847,392. That's one of 3 accounts, I said. My primary checking account. I also have a savings account with approximately $4.2 million and an investment portfolio worth roughly $12 million. Would you like to see those as well? Victoria's face had gone completely white. Daniel was shaking his head in disbelief. Mom, why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted you to be hungry, son, I said gently. I wanted you to work hard, to achieve things on your own, to feel the satisfaction of building something yourself.
If you'd known I was wealthy, you might have been tempted to rely on that, to take the easy path, and then you never would have become the man you are today. But I thought you struggled, he said. I worried about you. I felt guilty every time I bought something nice for myself, thinking you couldn't afford basic things. I know, and that's exactly what I wanted. Not for you to feel guilty, but for you to think about others, to be aware that not everyone has what you have, to develop empathy. Those are lessons that money can't buy, Daniel. Those are lessons you learn by believing your mother takes the bus to work because she has to, not because she chooses to. Victoria found her voice again. This is manipulative, cruel even. Is it? I asked. More manipulative than trying to pay someone to stay out of your daughter's life? More cruel than spending an entire evening pointing out someone's poverty, than offering them money with strings attached?
We were trying to help, Victoria insisted, but her voice was weak now. No, I said firmly. You were trying to control. There's a difference. Help comes from kindness. Control comes from fear. You were afraid that I would embarrass you, that I would reflect poorly on your family, that I would drag Claire down. So you tried to manage me, to put me in my place, to remind me of my station. That's not true, Richard said, but he didn't sound convinced even to himself. Isn't it? I looked him in the eye. Then tell me, Richard, if I had shown up tonight in a designer dress, driving a luxury car, with expensive jewelry, would you have offered me an allowance? Would Victoria have spent the evening pointing out how hard life must be for me? He said nothing. Of course not, I continued. You would have treated me like an equal. You would have been warm and welcoming. You would have respected me, not because of who I am, but because of what I appeared to have. And that, Richard, is the problem. You judge people by their wealth, and that makes you fundamentally hollow. Victoria stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. You're right, I said calmly. You don't. But before you leave, let me tell you something important, something you should have learned a long time ago. She waited, her body rigid with barely controlled fury. And what lesson have you learned? Victoria shot back. That lying to your own son is acceptable? That deceiving people is fine as long as you have a good reason? I learned, I said slowly, that sometimes you need to see people at their worst to understand who they really are. Tonight, I saw you, Victoria. I saw the real you, beneath the expensive dress and the perfect makeup and the practiced charm, and I don't like what I saw. The feeling is mutual, she spat. I'm sure it is, I replied, but here's the difference between us. You don't like me because you think I deceived you. I don't like you because you revealed your true character. One of these things can be forgiven, the other cannot. Victoria grabbed her purse. Richard, we're leaving. I won't sit here and be lectured by someone who— Wait, the waiter interrupted nervously, approaching our table. Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt, but— What is it? Richard snapped. Sir, your credit card was declined. Do you have another form of payment? You could have heard a pin drop. Richard's face went from angry to confused to embarrassed in the span of seconds. That's impossible. Try it again. The waiter shifted uncomfortably. I tried it twice, sir. Both times it was declined. There must be a mistake, Victoria said shrilly. That's our platinum card. The limit is nearly unlimited. Sometimes banks freeze cards when they detect unusual spending patterns, especially if you're traveling for security reasons. We're not traveling, Richard said through gritted teeth. We live here. Let me try another card, Victoria said, digging through her purse. She pulled out a gold card and handed it to the waiter. This one will work. The waiter disappeared with the card. We sat in an uncomfortable silence. Victoria wouldn't look at anyone. Richard checked his phone with increasing agitation. Claire held Daniel's hand, her eyes red from crying. The waiter returned, his expression apologetic. I'm sorry, ma'am, this one was also declined. Victoria's face went pale, then red, then pale again. This is impossible. Richard, call the bank, now. Richard stood up and walked away from the table, his phone pressed to his ear. Victoria sat frozen, her perfect composure finally cracking. This has never happened to us, she whispered. Never. How embarrassing, I said softly, to come to an expensive restaurant and not be able to pay the bill. How absolutely mortifying. She looked at me with pure hatred. You're enjoying this. Am I asked, or am I simply observing, watching you experience a tiny fraction of the helplessness you tried to make me feel all evening? This is just a bank error, she insisted. It will be resolved. I'm sure it will, I agreed, but in the meantime, someone needs to pay for dinner. Daniel reached for his wallet. I'll get it. No, I said firmly, you will not. Mom, I said no, Daniel. I looked at him with love but also with authority. Tonight, I'm paying. I reached into my canvas bag and pulled out my wallet. Victoria watched with bitter fascination as I opened it. I made a show of moving past several cards before selecting one. It was transparent, made of heavy metal with subtle titanium threading through it. I placed it on the table in front of the waiter. His eyes widened. Is that a centurion card? Yes, I replied. Victoria gasped. She recognized it. Anyone with significant wealth recognizes the American Express Centurion card, the invitation-only black card, the card that requires a minimum annual spending of $250,000 just to maintain, the card that costs $5,000 per year just to possess, the card that fewer than 1% of people in the world have ever even touched. The waiter handled it reverently, like a sacred object. He returned within minutes, his demeanor noticeably more respectful. Thank you, Miss Aisha. Everything has been taken care of. Would you like your receipt? That won't be necessary, I said. He nodded and withdrew. I looked at Victoria. Her face was a mixture of shock, humiliation, and rage. The bill was $847, I said conversationally, including the wine you insisted on ordering. Consider it my treat. After all, you offered me $700 a month. The least I can do is cover one dinner. Richard returned to the table, his face grim. There's been some kind of security hold placed on our accounts. The bank says it will take 24 hours to resolve, some kind of fraud detection algorithm. How unfortunate, I said. Good thing I was here to help. Richard looked at the empty spot where the check had been. Did someone... Your son's poor, struggling mother paid, Victoria said bitterly, with a card worth more than our house. I stood up, gathering my worn canvas bag and my simple wallet. I looked at each person at the table in turn. Claire, I said gently, you are not responsible for your parents' behavior. You can't choose your family, but you can choose how you treat others. I've watched you with Daniel, and I've seen nothing but kindness. Hold on to that. Don't let their values corrupt yours. Claire nodded, tears streaming down her face. Daniel, I continued, turning to my son, I'm sorry I kept this from you. I'm sorry you worried about me, but I'm not sorry for the man you've become because of it. You learned to work hard. You learned to value things beyond money. You learned empathy. Those lessons were worth every deception. Daniel stood and hugged me tightly. I love you, Mom. I don't care about the money. I just wish I'd known. I know, but you understand now why I did it. He nodded against my shoulder. I turned to Richard and Victoria. They sat frozen. Their perfect evening turned into a nightmare. You offered me $700 a month, I said. Let me make you a counteroffer. I'll give you $1 million right now if you can show me one example of you treating someone kindly who had nothing to offer you. One person you helped when there was no benefit to yourselves. One act of genuine compassion towards someone you considered beneath you. Victoria opened her mouth, then closed it. I thought so, I said. You can't.
Because to you, people only have value if they have wealth. You measure human worth in dollars and cents, and that makes you poor in ways that matter far more than money. You have no right to judge us, Victoria said, her voice shaking. Don't I asked. You spent an entire evening judging me, weighing my worth, finding me lacking, deciding I wasn't good enough for your family. All I did was hold up a mirror and let you see what you really are. And what are we? Richard asked quietly. Shallow, I said simply. Hollow. Empty. You have money, but you don't have substance. You have possessions, but you don't have character. You have wealth, but you don't have wisdom. And that, Richard, is why I will never accept your wife's offer, why I will never take a single dollar from you, because your money is tainted by the ugliness of your values. I picked up my bag and turned to leave. Wait, Victoria called out. Her voice cracked. This doesn't end here. Simone, Claire is our daughter. Daniel is our son-in-law. We will still be family. You'll have to see us. You can't just walk away. I turned back. You're right, we will be family. We'll see each other at birthdays, holidays, family gatherings, and every single time you'll remember this night. You'll remember how you treated the poor woman, how you offered her money to disappear, how you judged her and found her wanting. And then you'll remember that she was richer than you all along, that she saw through you completely, that she paid for your dinner when your cards failed, and you will live with that knowledge for the rest of your life. Victoria's face crumpled. You're a cruel woman. No, I said softly. I'm a truthful one. There's a difference. I didn't create this situation. You did. I just revealed it. I walked toward the restaurant exit, Daniel and Claire following behind me. I could feel Victoria's eyes boring into my back. As we reached the door, I heard her voice one more time. She can't do this to us. She can't just humiliate